Good morning and welcome to Carolina Cares, an iHeart Media production. My name is Tyler Ryan, your host, and this morning on the guest list, we're going to speak with the mother of a young man who tragically lost his life to a car accident 11 years ago, not related to texting, not related to drinking, simply related to a potential lead foot, and how she's taken that tragedy and reached out to potentially what could be 30,000 conversations every single year that police and coroners have to have with a family to say, ma'am, sir, your child isn't coming home. The Kenny Wolfe Foundation. Also, talking about lupus, a very rare disease, rare in knowledge, not necessarily an impact, with nearly 2 million people being diagnosed with lupus just in this country alone. But what is lupus, how you live with it, and resources that are out there are topics today on Carolina Cares. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back to Carolina Cares, and it is a conversation that the parents, it's the worst nightmare. There's really no way to say it other than the worst nightmare. You raise a child, you put them through driver education, you hand them the keys, they're going to go on a date, they're going to go to the store, they're going to go out and have some fun with friends, and you tell them to be home at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and you hear a knock at the door, and it's not your teenager. It's a police officer, somebody with news that in an instant is going to change your life forever. And sadly, in this country, every single year, this conversation is had 30,000 times. 30,000 times a year, this conversation is had across this country with parents who face the next day, the next moment, the next forever, dealing with the loss of a child. And that happened to the Wolfe family January 1st, 2007. 11 years ago, just over 11 years ago, that happened when Tracey and Ken Wolfe sent their son Kenny out, and who returned was a knock at the door. Since then, they've taken that heart, that pain, that tragedy, and tried to use what they learned to help others who have that same conversation. This morning, the founder of the Kenny Wolfe Foundation, Tracey Wolfe. First of all, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Tyler.
It's hard to believe it's been 11 years at this point. 11
years. It's hard to believe. Every day I get up thinking another year has come and gone without him.
Let's talk about that. What he was killed in a car wreck, and this one is related to speed. It wasn't. A lot of times you think of the texting and driving, alcohol involved and all these other things. In Kenny's case, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was driving fast, right?
He was driving fast. He was coming down 26. He had just left his girlfriend's house. Mm-hmm. Typical teenager. He was 18 years old, driving a Camaro. We don't know exactly what happened, but according to the MATE unit, someone pulled up beside of him. They think, rev their engines. 18-year-old Kenny says, "Oh, no, you didn't."
Right, of course.
Witnesses said that a car came by at a high rate of speed, and then Kenny followed that car.
Sure.
Kenny passed a gentleman in the emergency lane, and when he passed in that emergency lane and came back in front of the gentleman, the car, we believe, tapped him and shot him through the median. So, it wasn't necessarily Kenny driving bad other than the speed, but
Sure.
It was... He couldn't control somebody else, and Ken and I tried to teach him that, son, it's not always you.
Sure.
You have to be careful.
And of course, the identity of that mystery car to this day, 11 years later,
we have no clue.
Nobody knows. Somehow, there's somebody who's involved in this wreck, this death of a teenage boy. that we may never know.
Correct.
It may sound awfully mean, but I hope that he lives with it every single day.
Exactly. And, at this point, I don't know that I would want to know because
Right.
I'm not sure how I could deal with that.
Sure. What were the next minutes, hours, months like for you and your husband? As we talked about a minute ago, it's a conversation that happens 30,000 times a year. Teenagers are killed in America a year. What's that process? How do you start processing that?
I think the first couple of days you're in a blur because there are certain things that has to be done. Okay, we've just been notified.
Right.
Now we have to plan a funeral. We have to notify family. And I think for the first few days, it's kind of a whirlwind. You're not real sure. It's surreal. It's not really happening. Then you have to then you come to the realization is, wait a minute, how am I going to bury my child?
Right.
What am I going to do?
There isn't a manual probably.
There
for
is
something
not a
like
manual.
that.
There is not a manual. No, I wish there were.
Sure.
And for everybody, it's different. Everybody processes death differently. So
right. And so, so you've got to start, it's January 1st, so you're looking at a brand new year, just had Christmas, everything is fantastic. And, in a minute and a half a minute, your world's upside down. And so that's where you've got to start. I guess you just initially, you just together, I would assume you probably cinch in as a family.
Yes.
Everyone and their brother comes out of the woodwork, all the aunts and the uncles and everybody. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be you and your husband and an empty seat at the table.
And that's what happens about the third or fourth day. Funeral's over.
Right.
Everybody's going home. You're sitting in the house and you're like, now what?
Yeah.
I remember the fourth day, I went to the refrigerator and there were 2 gallons of milk in the refrigerator. There have never been 2 gallons of milk at the same time. And that was when the reality hit me is he's not coming back.
Right.
He's not here.
Reason to take the milk.
To take the milk.
And, and I think you alluded to it a little bit, Tracey. I think it's important that, that there are drinking and driving accidents when it comes to kids. There are the texting, there and the myriad is 30,000 times a year is 30,000 times too many.
Right.
But, the fact that, speeding, I remember being a teenage boy. Oh, yeah. And I remember going through driver ed and you don't speed, but it is hard. You can make all the right decisions. Don't do drugs. Don't do those things. But I could sit in that car with him and think, you had a 72 Dodge Dart. You better believe I'm going to go it.
We all did it. They can't comprehend it. And that is a medical proven fact. The frontal lobe is not developed. That's why the difference between 15 and 24-year-olds is because that frontal lobe's not developed. Right. You have to have repetition. That's why you have to tell your child to clean the bedroom 20 times. They don't get it.
They don't process.
They don't process it like we do. And then they don't have the experience.
Sure. And I think that's another important part is you're right. You don't have the experience.
Yep.
I mean, heck, there's enough adult drivers who probably shouldn't be behind the wheel that'll make good choices. But
thank you.
But yeah, the fact that they haven't been driving long enough to know what a car is going to do, how to get out of a slide, what to do, how to say, hold on, this is going a little too fast. This car is making noises it shouldn't be making.
Exactly. When you run off the road, what's your first reaction?
Oh, everyone hits the brakes.
It's a knee jerk. Knee jerk, hit that brake. Mm-hmm. You don't do that. And we think that that's probably contributed to a lot of of what happened with Kenny. So
sure. So you in the days, weeks, months to follow, you look for some normal back in your life again.
Yes.
And I'm sure 11 years later it's still not normal, but you try to find that baseline, the C, I guess, called the average day, I guess.
It's a new normal.
Yeah.
We call it a new normal.
Okay. And you decide that, hey, I'm not alone. And that's got to be probably something you face too is, it happens a lot. It happens way too many times a year. But when you're that mom and that dad, you've got to feel like you're the only ones in the world who've ever lost a son to a car wreck. You've got to feel so isolated and not know where to go, right?
Exactly. It's like you're drowning. You're drowning in the sea. There's nobody here to help me. Nobody understands. Mm-hmm. Losing a father or a sister is just not the same.
Right.
It's not the same of losing. And, not only did we lose our son, we lost our baby. I mean, he was the youngest. So, there's nowhere. We felt there was nowhere to turn.
Right. Right. And I think, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, that may be reality. There hasn't been historically a place to turn. Like we talked about, there's no manual. There's no here's how to do this. Here's how you, when you are not planning anything like that, here's how you plan a funeral. Here's where you go. Here's where you get flowers. Here's where anything.
Exactly.
Like that. And that, for at least a lot of it, probably was the predication behind you forming the Kenny Wolfe Foundation.
Correct.
Tell me about the foundation. And we're speaking, by the way, this morning with Tracey Wolfe, the founder of the Kenny Wolfe Foundation. And you can learn more about Kenny's story and what they do in their mission at kennywolfefoundation.com. But let's talk about the foundation.
The foundation basically does that. We support. We have 3 areas. We educate, we support, and we act. The educate, of course, is to teach teens the dangers of distracted driving, to teach parents the dangers of distracted driving. And like you said, it's not necessarily just texting.
Right.
It's not just too many people in the car. There are so many factors. So we try to teach these kids, this is what's going to happen. It's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. And then the other side of the foundation is we support. We support these families. We support these families. It may be for funeral cost. It may be for flowers. It may be for memorials. I remember 2 things I received after Kenny died is somebody gave me a set of wind chimes and somebody gave me a devotional book. Okay. Those wind chimes are still on my porch today. And when the wind is ripping and you can hear those chimes, it's almost like a piece of, oh, wow, that's pretty neat. And then, of course, the devotion, I carry it with me everywhere. And in the back had a journal, and I was able to write down my thoughts. That was the biggest thing. So that's what we want to do. We want to walk along beside these families. Right. We've had incidents where they've just called us and said, I just need to talk. We've went over to the home. We've just held their hand, and we've just walked and cried beside of them. It may not be the financial aspect of it. It may be counseling. We have a pastor on our board that is available if they need some type of counseling. And, like with anything, Tyler, sometimes you just need somebody to walk beside of you. And that's what we want to do. We've been there. We've done that. We've received that knock on the door. We know what you're going through. And let me tell you, does it get easier? No, it doesn't get easier. So that old cliche of it gets easy. No.
Sure, time heals all wounds, right?
No, it doesn't. Yeah. No, it doesn't. You learn to cope. You learn a new way of life, basically. We
had talked before the air this morning about tragically the loss of the four kids just recently here in Irmo, with that police pursuit and claiming the life of 4 young lives gone. There's 4 of the 4 conversations that were had that morning with families just like you.
Exactly.
Tell me how the Kenny Wolfe Foundation would play into that situation.
There were actually 3. It was 3 in Irmo and then 1 in Lexington County. The one in Lexington County, we actually were friends of the family. So we were able to step in and say, okay, what can we do for you?
Right.
How can we help you? As far as the ones in Irmo, no one has reached out to us yet, but only because we're still just kind of, although the foundation's been going for 11 years, I've just been going for the past 2 years because it's taken me that long to get through a conversation without losing it pretty much.
Right.
So, we're still getting the word out that, hey, we're here to help. We're here. But normally what we do is when we find that there is a tragedy, we will send flowers and just a card from Ken and I that just says, hey, we're here. This is what we do.
And I think, that probably bears, time to talk about too, is some people grieve. Everybody grieves differently. And some people they may choose for some isolation for a minute to process. And it's important to know that at least you're there if and when someone reaches out, you're there to reach back.
Correct. And that's the biggest thing is you can't make anybody grieve how you grieved.
Right.
Ken and I grieved differently. Ken waited 2 years before he even grieved because marriages, like 70% of marriages dissolve after the death of a child because you're both grieving. Who's taking care of the other person? So, everybody has to grieve differently, but that's the main thing is to let people know we're here. Okay. We're here when you're ready, whether it's the day after, whether it's 6 months after, whether it's 5 years after. We're here. We're going to be here. We want to walk that journey with you.
Tracey Wolfe, the Kenny Wolfe Foundation. We have just a couple of seconds left, but you've got coming up the 11th annual Kenny Wolfe Foundation Golf Tournament, and that's happening September 17th, so it's a couple of minutes out. That's coming up before you know it.
Exactly. That'll be out at Cobblestone. It is a captain's choice. We would love to have you come out. Proceeds this year, we are going to be donating and helping the Springdale Police Department get them some much needed equipment. We want to have that bond with law enforcement, and we want students to know law enforcement is not bad. They're good guys. They're your friends. So, we want to try to bring those communities together and help with that.
Sure. Tracey Wolfe, the Kenny Wolfe Foundation. Again, I'm so sorry for your loss 11 years ago of your son, but to know, and hopefully listeners and people understand that you're not alone, that it happens all too often, every single year. That knock comes, that conversation comes, and the fact there's people out there to help guide you. You guys can write the book. I guess it isn't written yet, but
we're here.
But you're there. Tracey Wolfe, once again, that website is kennywolfefoundation.com. You can find that. We'll put links for you. CarolinaCares.com as well. And clear your calendar. September 17th is the big Captain's Choice Date to celebrate the life of Kenny Wolfe and moving forward with that as well. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Carolina Cares. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Joe Perry.
And Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, here for RAD, recording artists, actors, and athletes against drunk driving. Yeah, we love it when the music does the talking.
And the music stops when someone gets killed.
So never, 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 never let someone get behind the wheel if they've been drinking. So keep it real, keep it real. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Carolina Cares. And as we age, we start feeling symptoms, right? We have the aches in the bones. Maybe we feel fatigued. Perhaps we lose some hair, blood clots, sensitivity to light. All these things aren't necessarily anything, but adding up, they could mean a diagnosis of a rare disease called lupus. And I say rare, but it does impact anywhere between 1.5 to 2 million people in this country. And the other thing is that diagnosis really doesn't have anything to do with age, because it can happen at any time, like to my next guest, Allison Shepard, who was diagnosed with lupus at 15 years old. Now, interestingly enough, her mother was also diagnosed with lupus, and together they formed the Skip to My Lupus Incorporated Foundation. Good morning, Allison.
Morning.
So, Allison, you actually have lupus.
Yes, I do.
As does your mom.
Yes.
Tell me, what is lupus? What's a layman's term for lupus? What is it?
Well, basically, lupus is your body attacking itself. Okay. Your immune system is there to help you fight off infections. Well, with lupus, your good cells don't recognize your bad cells. So instead of your immune system attacking bad cells, it attacks all cells, which is why there's two types. There's kinds. There's systemic and there's discoid. And most people deal with systemic, which means it can attack any system. I like to compare it to, let's say, you're in a war and you get caught up in friendly fire. It's basically your friends don't recognize that you're not an opponent, and it kind of attacks yourself. Yeah.
Sure. How does one contract lupus? Is it just there? Is it a behavior? How do you get lupus?
Well, there's really nothing that can really pinpoint what it is, which is something that we do to try to raise awareness and research to see what it is. Some think it's environmental, some think it's hereditary. It's actually rare. Both me and my mother have it, but it's actually rare to have 2 generations back to back that have lupus. It's usually like maybe an aunt and a niece, or a grandmother and a granddaughter. It's very rare to see a mother-daughter or father-son that have lupus. So there's really no way to pinpoint exactly what happens. There's several signs that you have that show lupus. For me, I started having signs at 15. I wasn't diagnosed till I was 20 because it mimics so many different things. There's joint pains, there's sensitivity to sun. There's so many different things that basically it's like a list, and if you fit, it's 11 things on a list, and if you fit 6 out of 11, then more than likely it's lupus.
Some on the list: the constant fatigue, the achy joints you mentioned, hair loss, blood clots, sensitivity to light, as you mentioned, chest pain when you're breathing, mouth sores, swelling extremities around the eyes. So yeah, 1 or 2 of those things alone, you might have a cold, or maybe I've got something else. But how you got diagnosed at 15? How did the doctor know to say, you know what, we need to look at you, Allison, you might have lupus?
Well, at 15, I actually was an athlete. I played basketball and I ran track. And I started to get these joint issues to where my knees and my elbows would lock, bent, but I couldn't straighten them back up. And I was first told it was growing pains. And I'm like, wait a minute, growing pains is a sitcom. No one else is going through growing pains my age. Why am I the only one having these quote unquote growing pains?
Right.
And then I started having the sensitivity to the sun because, back in the 90s, we actually used to play outside.
Imagine that.
Yeah. And so, I would come and then they were saying it's sunburn. And I'm like, okay, well, it's not exactly sunburn because it's not like I've been to the beach or been out there all day. And it was just several different things. I was tired all the time. Like I could sleep all day and still be tired. And my mother and my grandmother was like, why are you so tired? You slept all night. You slept all day. Right. And so it was several different things. Like I said, it took 5 years to diagnose because things started accumulating over those 5 years. But that's what initially started it. I was no longer able to play the sports like I wanted to because of those joint issues.
Sure. Now, when you were diagnosed before your mother, or she was diagnosed first?
I was actually diagnosed 3 months before her.
Okay. So was she having the same sort of feelings? So she's like, yeah, me too. And
yes.
Sensitive to the sun and growing pains, and your mama probably was done growing at that point.
Right. Yes,
so that's another red flag.
Exactly. And the crazy thing is, I was actually in Georgia at the time, and she was in Virginia. And I can remember the day I was diagnosed. I was working at a hotel, and my doctor's appointment was right before I was supposed to go to work. So you can imagine I went to work a complete mess, and they let me go home. But of course, my mom was the first person I called. And when I told her, and we had already discussed that she was going through the similar things, and she spoke with her doctor. And then 3 months later, they do have a test. It's called an ANA and a double-stranded DNA.
Okay.
But the only things about those tests are you have to actually be in a lupus flare for it to show positive.
Describe a lupus flare.
Oh, goodness. Basically, the joint, the extreme fatigue, you may have some nausea, maybe some vomiting. It just kind of depends on the person. For me, an extreme flare includes like the vomiting, nausea, can't get out of bed.
How long does a flare last? Is it a few hours, a few days?
It can be anywhere from a few days to a few weeks.
Wow.
It depends. It's lupus is exacerbated by stress, and it can definitely be good stress. You can go to Six Flags and have the time of your life.
Right.
But the next day, you probably going to be in a lupus flare because of it's not something that you usually do. You don't go to Six Flags every day, exactly. And you can get in an argument with, let's say, your significant other, and you may or may not have lupus flare, but if it's a big argument, then more than likely the next day you're going to be in a flare.
What happens to untreated lupus? If for some reason you just, when I was a kid, probably like you, just walk it off. You're fine. Take some Advil, take some Tylenol. What's the long-term danger of not realizing you have lupus and then taking care of it?
Well, for one, the systemic kind, like I said, it can attack any system. So if it's untreated, for me, let's say it's attacked my kidneys. I have been on dialysis for kidney. I've been on chemo. Untreated, I may not be sitting here talking to you because if it attacks your systems, you have your nervous system, you have your central nervous system, you have your, any system, your cardiac, anything. So
it's not just an annoyance; it's something that could cost your life.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
So a while back, you and your mom both diagnosed with lupus.
Yes.
You start Skip to My Lupus. You co-found this group, this organization. Tell me real quick about that. What you guys do.
Okay, well, we started in 2006 in Augusta, Georgia. The name came to my mom in a dream. At the time, she didn't know what the name meant, but then later on, we decided this organization would be beneficial because at that time, not too many people knew about it. It wasn't until really celebrities started, let's say Tony Braxton, Nick Cannon, things like that, people like that, until people started really recognizing, because back then people, well, what's lupus? Well, what does it do? Well, who does it affect? Is it contagious? Is it this? Is it that? So we wanted to start the organization to help raise awareness and also let people who had lupus know that they're not alone. we experience these things that you're going through as well. If you need someone to talk to, call us. We're not just people that say, "Oh, we understand." No, we really understand.
For reals.
Yeah.
Speaking with Allison Shepard, Skip to My Lupus Incorporated is the organization she started. You can go to skiptomylupus.org for information on that. And that's a great question. You hinted at it. Is it contagious? Can you catch lupus?
No.
Okay.
No. It's not something that I can give you a hug and then tomorrow you have lupus. No. It's, like I said, there's no pinpoint of what it actually comes from, but we do know it's definitely not contagious. Is
lupus with you forever? You can treat it. Obviously, you can control the flare-ups. You on dialysis to protect your kidneys, from being attacked. Is there a cure for lupus, or is it something you're going to have the rest of your life and it's going to be just part of your world?
Well, as of now, it's something you have for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Our organization, we also are assisting different avenues as far as trying to find a cure. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes that's through like skin biopsies, different biopsies of the organs to see what's going on, how's it attacking it. Hopefully someday there will be a cure, but as of now, there's not.
Okay. Now, you have got an event coming up on May 5th at Drew Wellness Center. It's an indoor lupus walk. Give me the deets on that, Allison Shepard.
Okay, well, that's going to be May 5th, which is a Saturday, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Mm-hmm. It's called Walk to Dessert Lupus. Mm-hmm. And we have the melting pot there. They'll be there doing desserts.
Love the melting pot. Just throwing that out there.
Yes. Come get your little chocolate fondue. We did a walk last year. It was outdoor at Earlwood Park. Mm-hmm. But being that, like I said, the sensitivity to the sun, it really drains you and you may break out or whatever. We decided to do it indoor this year. So we're doing it. It's in the gym. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a DJ. Nice. So it's going to be kind of a little line dancing going on, So everybody make sure you wear your sneakers. You can register on our website. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on everything everybody else is,
All
social media.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. I know us old folks, but yeah, we're everywhere. But, and basically what it is just, again, to raise awareness for lupus, to check in and touch bases with our current clients, and to possibly find and meet new clients who are newly diagnosed or who have family members and are trying to gain an understanding of things, and just to have fun and just do something on a Saturday morning, just have a little fun.
I love it. Allison Shepard, the co-founder, Skip to My Lupus Incorporated. May 5th, Drew Wellness Center is the event. But, of course, anytime you can reach out, get more information about lupus. This has actually been very informative, at least for me. I'm sure the listeners as well, because you hear lupus, you hear about it, but you've educated me beyond believability in 10 and a half minutes for sure. But we truly appreciate your dedication, you and your mom and everyone else.
No problem. Thank you.
Allison Shepard, once again, skiptomylupus.org is that website. And we'll put links for it, carolinacares.com as well.
Thank you.
But good luck on May 5th. Get involved. And, of course, please come back, tell us how that went, and let us know how we can help you as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Tyler.
Carolina Cares, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Families affected by disasters urgently need support. Help the American Red Cross provide meals and shelter to those affected by disasters, big and small. Donate to Red Cross Disaster Relief. Go to redcross.org or call 1-800-RED-CROSS.
That is going to do it for this week's edition of Carolina Cares. Once again, I want to thank Allison Shepard from Skip to My Lupus for sharing information about lupus, some alternatives, some places to go for resources and help. You can check out their website, skiptomylupus.org, and also the Tracey Wolfe and the Kenny Wolfe Foundation. Just a conversation that no parent ever should have, that their teenager isn't coming home due to a motor vehicle accident. But the Kenny Wolfe Foundation is just a very inspirational story, taking that pain that you can't even fathom and turning it into a resource for others who have that conversation. You can check out KennyWolfeFoundation.com for more information on the Kenny Wolfe Foundation. Of course, we'll put links for you at CarolinaCares.com as well. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Tyler Ryan, your host on Carolina Cares, an iHeartMedia production.